G'day, welcome to True Blue History. I'm Adam Blum. Today, I have the honour and privilege to speak with Doug Baird, OAM, for service to the families of the fallen and veterans, about his late son, Corporal Cameron Baird, VC, MG, 2nd Australian Commando Regiment. At the time of recording this podcast, it's almost 8 years since Corporal Baird was killed in action on the 22nd of June 2013. For listeners who aren't familiar with Cameron's story, he was posthumously awarded the Victoria Cross for Australia on the 13th of February 2014, Australia's highest honour award and the 100th to receive this honour. He was the fourth person to receive this award and the first posthumously during Operation Slipper in Afghanistan. Since then, your wife, Kay, son, Brendan, and yourself have not only coped with the loss, but have been generously prepared to share his story. In 2017, Cameron's story was published in The Commando, The Life and Death of Cameron Baird, VC, MG, by Ben McKelvey. Rather than focus only on Cameron's life as a soldier, I think it's important to remember that Cam, above everything else, was a son, brother, uncle, and much loved family member. I'd also like to talk about some of the less well-known aspects of Cam's life that you shared in the Commando. Doug Baird, thanks for joining us on True Blue History.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. I appreciate the opportunity to come on and have a chat with you.
No, thank you, Doug. It's an absolute privilege. So in the book, Doug, you share what your first thoughts about Cam were. Could you share them with our listeners? What were your hopes and dreams for your new son?
Look, that's a great question to start with, Adam. I think we wanted to tell Cam's story in the complete, and it was based on the fact that we understood that people in the Army knew nothing of Cameron and what he achieved before becoming a soldier. And it was completely in reverse. When Cameron joined the Army, his friends prior knew nothing about what Cameron had done since he joined the Army. So from that perspective there, we tried to sort of like get both sections of his life together to inform his Army friends and his civilian friends. Cameron was an outstanding AFL player. He was captain of the Victorian primary school team. He won the Best and Fairest award in the comp many times. In 1 year, he was awarded the Keith Gregg Medal for Best and Fairest in the Eastern District League. He only played 6 games for the season, but he received 3 votes for each one of those games. He was an outstanding athlete as well. Australian discus champion. He was the Victorian shot put champion. They're just to name a few of some of the things we tried to cover in the book.
So what are some of your favourite memories of Cam as a young boy?
Yeah, one of the things that probably stand out to us as a parent was Cameron's ability to have empathy, and for a young person probably in primary school, it's very hard to understand how somebody could even spell the word, how they could understand what the word actually meant. But Cameron did have great empathy for his fellow students, for his fellow players, and they were the sort of things that probably as a young fellow he started to put together his life's ethos, and they were the things that he would carry through from a junior to his senior part of life after the year of 18. As a young boy, we were extremely proud of that fact, and there were many things I could probably talk for half an hour on those things, but yeah, certainly empathy was one of them.
In the book, Doug, you talk about Cameron when he went to the Australian War Memorial when he was in Year 6. Can you tell us about that story?
Yeah, that's a story that we had forgotten about, to be perfectly honest, and it was a school excursion and they went to the Australian War Memorial. And just talking to Cameron on that in the later years, he did remember. He remembered what he actually seen. And prior to going there, I don't think he had any conception whatsoever of what the Australian War Memorial was, what it actually stood for. So I think that was probably the start of his thinking towards military. And it was a very, very important stage of his life, and I think it came about at the right sort of time.
How competitive was Cam as an athlete, Doug? And did he train harder, or was he naturally gifted?
Cameron was extremely naturally gifted, but having said that, like many young people, he was extremely determined to become the best of what he possibly could, whatever he chose to do, and of course that required hard work. So it was certainly a combination of natural ability and certainly putting in the time and the effort to learn that particular trade and to be successful at it.
What are some of your favourite memories of Cam playing footy?
Oh, gee, that's one that I could peel off probably half a dozen. I think the thing that settles me the most is that we'll always remember Cameron being named captain of the Victorian primary school team. And that had some players that went on to play AFL football, and people like Jonathan Brown were in it. But I think overall we liked the one that we do remember was right back in primary school, and Cameron was a very much bigger player than most of the kids there, and there was an incident one particular day that Cameron had taken a mark and he'd marked it in the goal square, and it was a formality to kick the goal. But standing alongside him was a little fella that virtually had not touched the ball all day, never kicked the goal in his life. And Cameron said, stand alongside me. You know, I said, I'm going to handball it to you. I want you to kick the goal. And that's exactly what happened. And I think probably that's etched in our memory now. And we still remember the smile on that particular young fella's face, the laughter that he had. And believe it or not, his father was there that particular day. And he made a beeline for Cameron after the game and just sort of like shook his hand. I seen this from a distance, and I thanked him. And I said to Cameron, what did that man say to you? And he said that he said to me that he wanted to thank me because the amount of joy that he'd given his son. And I thought that would be a memory that we'll never forget. And it's certainly etched in our memory for life.
You've shared publicly that your family had several members who had served in the army. What was your father's military experience, and where had other members of your family served?
My father's service goes back to World War II. He served in New Guinea in the 31st Battalion, Queensland. He was involved in a few skirmishes. He was involved also with mustard gas trials at Innisfail in Queensland. He was badly burnt and spent many months in hospital and with others involved. My father, towards the end of the war, as they were in the process of pushing the Japanese back in New Guinea, my father was put up for a bravery award. But that never happened. But what actually happened on that day was that the Japanese had blocked their path when they were trying to push them back. And there was a machine gun set up there, and it held their advance up. They were in danger of actually being shot or wounded. So my father took it upon himself to go forward with a grenade clipped up and tossed the grenade into the box where the machine gun was. But as he got up and tried to move away quickly, the Japanese actually threw the grenade back out, and it blew my father off his feet. He then retreated back to where the rest of the team was, and they were under fire again, and the only way was to remove that gun box. So my father had a second attempt. This time he actually got up, he got a little bit closer, and he posted that grenade right inside the pillbox there, and it actually destroyed the Japanese. He was told he would be nominated for a bravery award, but what actually happened was 2 weeks not long after that, the World War II finished. And the paperwork that went with it never progressed much further than that. It was forgotten about in the jubilation of the war being over. So that's our memory in regard to what my father went through, and certainly what what Cameron sort of like often spoke about later on as well.
Doug, how would you describe Cameron's relationship with his grandfather, and did his grandfather speak of his wartime service to Cameron?
Yeah, look, that was never mentioned to me personally, but I do know for a fact that my father did share a few things with Cameron. And it certainly wasn't along the lines of trying to influence him on anything. It was just more about experience that he'd had. And Cameron, at that particular point, this conversation, I can remember sitting in my father's lounge room, and I can see him in deep conversation. And this was the very first time when I spoke to my father after that he said that yes, him and Cameron did exchange a few things. Cameron had only just returned from East Timor, his first deployment. And I think they were comparing notes, and my father then spoke, never spoke to me, never spoke to my other son, just spoke to Cameron on this occasion, and I think he gave him some insight into what he'd done as a service person as well.
Can you share Cam's dream to play professional AFL with us, and what shattered it?
Cameron's dream, it was his ambition, it was his life ambition. As I mentioned before, Cameron was an outstanding AFL player from primary school, captaining the Victorian side. He went on to play with the Calder Cannons in the TAC Cup, which is a feeder club to the AFL. He played a game with Geelong Reserves and did exceptionally well there, but unfortunately he received a shoulder injury in a practice match before the last season of the draft, and he wasn't drafted, and that almost destroyed him. And that was certainly a bitter blow. About his life ambition at that point was to play AFL football at the highest level.
You share in the book that the pivotal event that inspired Cam to join the Army came from an unusual source. Can you share with us what motivated him to join in that pivotal moment?
Those moments there was two things, and this may seem a little bit funny or a little bit odd, that during the school holiday period leading in towards Christmas there, he was watching TV and there was a show came on, it was called G.I. Jane. And for some unknown reason, it seemed to strike an accord with Cameron. He liked what he'd seen there, and on a trip to Melbourne only a day or two later into the CBD, he was wandering around there and he stumbled across an army recruiting centre. He looked at the photos in the front of the shop there. He went inside and had a bit of a chat to one of the officers in there, and they showed him a couple of videos. And all of a sudden, he felt that might be his calling. It was an opportunity, whereas he could start a new life away from football. And that was the opening of his road, or his move towards the military.
At the time, did you and Kay think his decision to enlist was out of character, given Cam's lack of interest in the military as a boy, or what? And what were your thoughts as parents when he came to you and said, "I've enlisted in the Army"?
That came out of the blue. It was a discussion we later heard that he had with one of his school teachers. And it was brought up to us towards the very end where the decision had basically been made. And I said to my wife at the time that, probably it's something that it's caught us off guard. How do we handle this sort of thing? Do we decide to try and fight it, to change his ways and his memory? And we decided not to, and we, like all parents do with their children, you support them, and that was the decision we made. But yes, that definitely came out of the blue, and it shocked us to a degree, considering had we had prior knowledge, we may have had a different thought, but yeah, it was one of shock and disbelief.
I could see why it would be, Doug, especially when Cam had not spoken about, he probably did it himself and then came home and said to you, "I've joined," and it's one of those things, one of those key moments.
Yeah, it certainly is, Adam, and it's one that even today it often comes up in a small little conversation. Could we have said or done something that would have changed his mind? But his mother knows, like I do, that his passion was Army, and the finish to to serve with 2nd Commando Regiment and to be part of the team. So it was, it was to be, and that's what history's going to show.
Absolutely. During the course of Cam's military career, he was deployed to East Timor, Iraq, and Afghanistan. What sort of things would you and the family do to help cope when Cam was deployed overseas?
Look, we knew right from the start there was potential danger, but it never crossed our mind that anything would actually happen. And some of the things we did, we obviously watched the news reports, we read things in the paper, and just kept abreast of what was sort of like going on. But we decided that while ever Cameron was away, we would live our life as normal as possible. And if that meant trying to block what he was doing over there, because we didn't hear anything, we didn't really know anything direct, only what we've seen in the media, that was our way of coping, that yes, we knew the dangers were there, but we just thought everything would work out okay.
Given when he deployed to Iraq and the secrecy and all the... How did he get in contact with you guys when he was on deployment?
In the very early days, contact was extremely hard, and it was very much of a hit and miss thing. And I can remember, not so much in East Timor, but certainly in Iraq, that the telephone calls were monitored, and we basically knew there was things we could ask and things we couldn't ask, and if we asked the wrong question, it would be blanked out, and you would get a little voice say, if you want to ask that question, ask it again, sort of thing. So yeah, it was extremely hard, but towards the end there, certainly with his tours to Afghanistan, with the internet and that, it was quite easy in the finish to actually make contact. And I think at that point, Cameron knew what he could say, what he couldn't say, and we as parents also knew that what we could ask and what the answers would be, so we never went to that little bit of a minefield.
How difficult was that for you, Doug, and Kay as parents, being some of Cam's life was secret and you couldn't ask? How was that for you as parents?
Difficult and frustrating in some ways, but we respected what the situation was, and we fully understood that Cameron wasn't a normal soldier, and the work that he was doing was the work that did require some sort of secrecy, did require some sort of protection and what was spoken and what wasn't spoken about. And I think that from our own personal benefit, we were far better accepting that and just getting on with it and just moving forward.
So Cam was awarded the Medal for Gallantry in 2007 while he was deployed in Afghanistan. During his second tour of operation, can you share with us what his reaction was to the award when he found out that he was actually going to be awarded the Medal for Gallantry?
The medal for gallantry is it's rated number 3. Obviously, the Victoria Cross is number 1, the Star of Gallantry is number 2, and the Medal for Gallantry is number 3. It's an extremely prestigious and very highly chased award. The story behind it was that when it was first announced, and Cameron had received his letter saying that he was required to be a government house to receive this sort of thing, and he actually discarded the letter. And it was only 6 months later after that a second letter came, and it was a little bit more forceful. And this time the regiment had been advised that the letter's coming out, and Cameron decided that no, he wasn't going to accept the Medal for Gallantry, because he was a strong belief that that particular action on that day, that was the first time the commandos had lost a serving member, and Cameron felt that that particular action also included the whole team, and everybody was done their bit to make sure it happened, and Cameron felt that he shouldn't have been signalled out, and therefore he was not going to accept it. That wasn't accepted by the team, by the regiment, and it was pointed out to Cameron that by accepting the Medal for Gallantry, you're not only accepting it on behalf of yourself, you're accepting it on behalf of the team, and you're also accepting it on behalf of the regiment. And I think that changed his mind. to understand that, yes, this thing was a personal thing for him, but yes, it was going to be shared amongst the team, amongst the regiment. So he accepted it.
Can you tell us when he was awarded the Medal for Gallantry, where was the presentation held?
The Medal for Gallantry was presented at Government House in New South Wales. We came down from Queensland as guests in the government to attend that award, and it was a day that it sticks in my mind as clear as yesterday at what actually transpired. And it was a day of great pride and to see that actually be awarded to Cameron and hear the story on that particular day. The citation was read out, and we hadn't heard the full detail prior, but it was there and in black and white, and it was very telling. And it was a wonderful day for our family, and certainly one day for two Commando Regiment as well.
How did Cam cope with stresses when he was on deployments, Doug? Did he ever let into you about how he coped with his stresses whilst being deployed?
Look, Cam never spoke about that. I think it's one of the things that he used to speak about was strength of mind, and I think it was a prime example here that he was strong-minded. But Cameron also had an access there to music. He had his guitar, and I think probably that was his way of easing any tension. But Cameron was pretty professional in the way he thought about things, and his focus was not negative. It was always a positive focus, and certainly that side of it would not have entered his domain.
The book shares that one of Cam's loves was the Aussie rock band AC/DC, and he and some of his mates went to the Black Ice tour. What was his favourite AC/DC song and why?
Oh, look, that's a very simple one. It's Thunder, of course. And if I may take the opportunity to tell a very quick little story. Absolutely. The first concert of AC/DC Cameron ever attended was right back when he was only in grade 5 at primary school. I was very fortunate that I was good friends with the United Breweries, and they had a super box at the entertainment centre in Melbourne, and we had the use of that super box. And I recall that when that particular song Thunder was being played, Cameron rose to his feet and stood by the window, and as they pumped out the song and the fists in the crowd started to sort of like shake, Cameron was pumping his fist as well. So that was his first experience to AC/DC, and I'm sure that was in his mind for the rest of his life. But it was certainly a wonderful experience from a father sitting there to see this little boy in this big crowd, sort of like, pumping away to AC/DC.
Doug, most people have seen the photo of Cameron with his guitar and his love for music. What do you think it was? What did Cam get out of his love for music? What was it that he enjoyed the most out of music?
I think the word relaxation, even though people might not associate heavy metal with relaxation, but Cameron had an appreciation for classical, and he would understand, and he would often play tunes on his guitar of classical stuff. But his love obviously was heavy metal. It was a way of him expressing himself in some ways, I suppose. But it was a love and a passion that he shared with others, and it was something that he took to his grave.
Absolutely. And probably the most recognisable photo of Cam is his readiness for battle and wearing his distinctive face paint. Can you tell us about why he chose that design?
That one, I can honestly say I don't know the answer to that one. I am told, that Cameron often had different face paint on. It wasn't the traditional way a army soldier would put it on. that particular day for that particular photo, and it wasn't meant for anything special. It was just that I think he just come up with a slightly different design, and that's the one. And that's very iconic now. It's probably the photo that people associate with Cameron Baird VCMG. When that comes up, they know exactly who it is. It's not meant to be anything but a soldier with face paint on, and that particular photo was actually taken as they were standing ready to board a chopper to go out onto a mission. So it's an important photograph for us as a family, but I'm sure it's an important photograph for Cameron's team and the regiment.
Cam was chosen as part of a group to go to Gallipoli. What impact did that have on him?
Yeah, look, that's a fantastic story. Just going back to the very start, Cameron was chosen out of all the special forces to represent them at this particular event. There was also some people from Air Force and other areas as well. They'd done a 2-week study under Jack Thurger in Canberra, learning a little bit more about the history of the Anzac, particularly the layout of the land, how it transferred on the day. Cameron was given the opportunity to get into a canoe while over there, to paddle out just before dawn and then look back towards the mountains, and would have been the sight that our Anzacs seen as they made their attempt to land on that particular beach. He would have known the current, he would have known the wind, he would have known the temperature. And that led to Cameron having a better understanding of what the Anzac truly meant. And I think it was the changing of Cameron and then the making of him to be the soldier he become. He was also honoured on that particular trip to recite at the service at Lone Pine. And once again, I think the history of Lone Pine is just something which is just everybody's in awe of, and I think it was stored by Cameron right through his whole military career.
For the listeners who aren't familiar with it, can you share with us, Doug, what happened on Cam's final day of life?
Look, it was probably a normal day, and that may sound silly to say something like that, but there was a procedure that, when the boys were going out to do a job, and it was pretty easy. Cameron rose, as he always did, very early that particular morning. He'd done a bit of a workout in the gym. He then went down to the communication area to see what was the latest intel and what was actually happening on that particular day, and then he went to prepare himself, get dressed, get his weaponry, and marched on out with the team and waited for the chopper to arrive to take him to do that particular job. That job itself was, as it was going to be their last job that they would do on that particular tour. They were due to go home in less than 2 weeks. It was one that was had to be done. The Taliban had moved back into the Code Valley there, and in the process of doing that and taking control, they actually killed, it was either 8 or 10 of the Afghan soldiers that were there to look after it. So the commandos had to go back and take that particular day. They've arrived and immediately were under fire. And it was very much noticed that there was 6 Taliban in particular, which had greeted them when they got off the choppers under heavy fire. They made the move towards the Taliban. The Taliban then retreated. They then broke into 2 groups of 3. One group went across the river. Another group moved up into the green belt. Cameron decided that he would follow the 3 that went across the river. He then went across the river. He came across them. They had set up an ambush, and Cameron had gone forward under heavy fire and neutralised those 3. He came back to the rest of the team. He then went forward after the other 3. It was the same thing. They had set up for an ambush. Cameron again went forward and he neutralised those 3. They were then advised that one of the other team commanders had been shot, and it was in a lot of strife with the possibility of losing his leg or possibly his life if he wasn't evacuated out very quickly. So Cameron's team decided to move forward to assist in securing a place for the helicopter to land. But they unfortunately were ambushed that particular moment, and they couldn't progress any further. And as it turned out, this particular hut was well fortified, but it was a situation whereas that they couldn't leave it. And Cameron had three options that day as it panned out. The first option would have been the nice, easy one. He could have easily just got on the phone and spoke to the boss at the top of the hill and said he wants an airstrike, which they would have flattened everything and killed everybody, and that would have included women and children. So that wasn't an option for Cameron. The second option was that, yep, they're too well entrenched, we can't get them out, we'll move forward to the main fight. And that became a problem that had they had done that, they would have had the enemy in the front of them and they would have had the enemy at the back of them. So once again, option two wasn't a reality. So the third option was that something had to be done. At that point there, they were running low on ammunition and they'd been fighting for quite a while. So Cameron just took it upon himself to go forward, and the first attempt he went forward, he was driven back by heavy machine gun fire. Second attempt he went forward again, he actually had a stoppage in his gun, came back out and cleared it, and it was only later on discovered that in actual fact Cameron was receiving fire directly at him, and he was receiving fire from the side once he actually got near that door. And it was the fire coming from the side had struck the tip of the barrel of his suppressor on his gun, which caused the malfunction, but he didn't see that at the time. And the third time he went in and charged, he got across that doorway, he engaged in very close range with the Taliban, he neutralised him. But in the process of actually securing that place, he lost his life. So that was the story of Cameron's last moment, his last fight. The continuation, of course, was that the team was then able to go forward, secure the position for the fellow team commander that had been wounded. The chopper came in, he was evacuated to Germany eventually, and then home, and that particular soldier has recovered, even though his leg's slightly shorter. But he has deployed since then, and he's a wonderful soldier. And out of respect to, to Cameron, he had a son and named him Jack Cameron. I won't say his last name, who'll identify him, but yes, to have to name his son after Cameron was a wonderful thing.
How did you and Kay mentally prepare yourselves for the possibility of that final day that happened in 2013 when Cam lost his life?
It's strange that the feeling that you actually sort of like have, it's a numbness of being there but not being there, being alert but not being alert. It was like, as much as we tried to sort of like be brave and be and put it on, we just did the best we possibly could under the circumstances, and I think that probably from our family point of view, we just wanted to do justice to Cameron, and it was extremely hard to say the least, but we got through the day, and that's all that mattered.
So, unlike World War I and World War II, where Australian casualty numbers were in their thousands and news of their losses were experienced by many Australian families, your circumstances are different. Aside from yours, the families of the other 40 Australian soldiers who lost their lives in Afghanistan, how were you told, and when was it for you that it became real?
We had a conversation with Cameron prior to this deployment, and we always wanted to sort of like know exactly what went on. So Cameron sat us down and he said, I'll give you this opportunity and I'll tell it to you once. He said, when his mother asked about photographs, and he said, "Look, you don't have to worry about that. When we deploy, we have photographs taken. Those photographs are only ever used if we were to lose our life." He then went on to explain that if we see on the news that a soldier's been shot or killed in Afghanistan, it won't be him. He said, because Army they will call you on the phone if I've been wounded and explain things. And if I've lost my life, they will come in person and tell you at the door. And it was a Saturday evening. I was watching a rugby test match. That knock came to the door. Kay answered the door, and I can remember her saying, "Oh no." I knew straight away when I seen the three soldiers in uniform what the news was going to be. So we were prepared, but we were unprepared. So it was one of the most traumatic moments of our life, and it's something we would never wish on anybody else, any other family. And I think we can take pride in the fact that our thoughts have always been that way, that we would never wish this to happen to anybody else. It was very traumatic at the time.
And still is today, Doug. How hard has it been for you as a family to share your loss, given that most Australians wouldn't be able to fully understand what it feels like to lose a child who has died serving their nation? Were you able to receive support?
Oh, look, we had great support, and it's something that I guess when people look back and they do an analysis and things like that, of the 41 that were lost in Afghanistan at the very, very start, it was fairly ordinary. It was a new experience. That Cameron being in the latter of that particular group, the experience that Army had, it did get better, and not perfect, but it did get better. And the support that we actually got from the regiment, from Army in general, was, in our opinion, and it's only our opinion, it was as good as what it possibly could have been.
In what way, obviously, Doug, you hear it a lot from Australians who say, "Oh, how can we show our support to families like yourself and others who have lost family members fighting for our nation? How can Australians show support to families and yourself?"
That question has been asked and spoken about quite often. There is very little the general population can actually do for a family that has lost their son or their daughter in an action like that. I think from our perspective, we would not expect anything else apart from a genuine, sincere thank you to Cameron for his service for the country, and what he's done is good enough for us. And we now understand that we can't do anything for Cameron, but we can do things for other soldiers who are currently serving or have got out into civilian life, and Cam's cause is how we actually sort of like do it. So even though people are trying to say the nice things to us in regard to the loss of our son, and we never ever take that for granted, we have some wonderful people on 3 occasions, and they've all been at the Australian War Memorial. 2 mothers and 1 father at different times over different years have actually approached us, and they've thanked us personally for Cameron's service, and they've never added that their son is alive today for something that Cameron did on the battlefield. And to hear that is just, it's just wonderful that that sort of thing has happened, that their son is alive today for something that Cameron's done. And we give them nothing but good wishes, and we hope that young soldier fulfills what he wants to do in life and lives a long and happy life.
How did you learn that Cam was going to be awarded the Victoria Cross. What happened, and what did it mean to you and Kay and your son Brendan?
Yeah, that's that story at the very, very start was a little bit confusing to us because we'd been down to the Australian War Memorial, and I distinctly remember sitting with Dr. Brendan Nelson at the time, and he made comment that there's more to come with this particular story, and we didn't understand, or we didn't sort of like get what he may have been getting at, and he didn't go any further than that. And as it panned out, that it wasn't about a couple of months or later, we received a phone call from the Chief of Armies, wanted to know whether they could come and visit. And of course we said yes, and they came along, and Chief of Army arrived with his entree, and he asked whether we would be prepared to accept on Cameron's behalf the Victoria Cross. We were stunned. It wasn't what we were expecting. We thought something was up, and we just didn't know what it was. So we actually asked on that particular day, sitting in our own lounge room, that if we could have permission to leave the room. And my wife and my other son, we left the room and went to our bedroom, and we sat and we spoke about it, what it actually meant, what was actually being asked of us. And we used a little bit of a formula here, how Cameron had decided regard to the Medal for Gallantry, that no, he didn't really want to accept it, but in the end he did, because it wasn't, he didn't see it as an individual award, he seen it as a team reward. And at that point, the commandos or two commando did not have a Victoria Cross recipient. So we allowed all these little factors, and we came up with that, yes, we would accept it. We would accept it on behalf of his team on that day. We would accept it on behalf of the regiment, so that they are recognised for the absolutely fantastic work they'd done in Afghanistan. So, yeah, the Victoria Cross was accepted there. And then from then it was a trip. The very next day, a rather large limousine pulled up, and the whole family boarded that particular thing and under escort down to Coolangatta Airport. We went into a hangar. Gates, the door was opened by a few guys with sunglasses on, and it all looked very sus. The vehicle drove through the hangar and drove out the other side, and as we got out the other side, the Prime Minister's jet was on the tarmac there. The engine was going. We were whisked out of the car with our luggage into the aeroplane, and within 5 minutes we were in the air heading towards Canberra. We met with the Prime Minister the following morning, and later that morning it was going to be announced on the floor of Parliament House by the Prime Minister that the 100th Victoria Cross was to be awarded to Cameron. Again, a day of extreme pride, but certainly of sadness as well. That was a very mixed day for us as a family. So that was the day the Victoria Cross was presented to us and accepted by us, and under the conditions that it be seen that it belongs to not just Cameron alone, but to the team and to the regiment.
Since then, Doug, after you received the Victoria Cross on behalf of Cameron and the regiment, since then Cam has been remembered in many ways. Can you tell us about the life-size sculpture of him that was unveiled by the Governor-General of Australia, Peter Cosgrove, in 2014 at the Currumbin Return Services Club, and how did that come about, and what does it represent to you and Kay and your family?
That particular statue was a project that we weren't aware of, and we were only brought into the picture towards the very end of it, and it came about through the Cam's Cause team, that they were able to have a conversation with somebody that made the mini statues, and they actually had 5,000 of these made, and they were sold. And that's what generated the money for the big statue. But the big statue itself was one of where did it go? Where was it going to be placed? With Cameron, he was, as you know, born in Tasmania, so Tasmania claimed him as theirs, and perhaps that's where the statue should have went. He lived for 18 years in Victoria, and Victoria claimed him as theirs as well, so perhaps the statue should have been in Victoria. And of course, then New South Wales jumped in and said, well, he lived from 18 years to his death at 34. 32, sorry, in Sydney, New South Wales. Perhaps the statue should be there in New South Wales. But the statue now sits in Queensland at the Currumbin RSL, and it was put there for a reason. We were told later the decision was made that they believed that the statue should be where the Baird family lives and resides. So that decision was made, and that's why the statue is there. It's a monument that we see on a regular basis, and it has literally thousands of people that have been through to see that statue, to have a photograph taken with it, and we are so appreciative of the RSL, Currumbin, and general public in general for the way they've accepted and the way they see that particular statue.
As well as the statue, several awards part of Cam's legacy. In 2015, the Cameron Baird VC Scholarship was awarded. Another award is the Cameron Baird VC MG Memorial Award. Who are these awards for, please, Doug?
Yeah, look, the actual total of awards now in Cameron's name probably is in the double figure mark. And they're for various things. One, as an example, is the one for the city of Hume, which is the old city of Broadmeadows, where Cameron had spent many years as a junior. That's awarded to people in the public that have given service to the community and helped those in need. And it goes right through to the Australian Army has adopted Cameron, and the most outstanding soldier as he passes out from the home of the soldier at Kapuka. He's awarded the Corporal Cameron Baird VCMG statue, a mini statue as well, as an award. And the latest one, of course, is the NRL club in the Gold Coast, the Gold Coast Titans. Last Anzac Day initiated for the first time the Corporal Cameron Baird VCMG statue to their most outstanding player that contributed to the team effort. So there is quite a few, and they are, once again, never taken for granted, and they're very much pursued by the general public.
Can you tell us about the Corporal Cameron Baird VCMG medal that was awarded this year?
Yeah, look, that one there, once again, was for service to the community and team-oriented activities. It was one that was based on basically putting somebody else first.
Apart from the awards, Doug, a special part of Cam's legacy is Cam's cause. Can you share with us, and you mentioned it earlier on in the podcast, what it is and what it does?
Look, this is the greatest pride that we've got is the Cam's Cause charity. It's a registered non-for-profit charity. It came about by a meeting by chance at a supermarket between Cameron's grade 5 and grade 6 primary school teacher, Mr. Andrew Harrison, and Cam's best mate in private life in the early days, Chris Dyer, who's a full-time fireman. They discussed the possibility of having something in respect to Cameron, that they may be able to raise $3,000 or $5,000 at a function and perhaps donate that to a military charity. They actually ran a function at the Aquila Hotel, and they had to shut the doors at sales of 185 people due to health. They couldn't let anybody else in. Instead of raising $5,000, they actually raised $35,000. And within 2 days after that, they donated directly to the Commando Welfare Trust $30,000. and they left 5,000 in the kitty for Cam's cause. And that was the start of Cam's cause. And since then, it has raised over $700,000, of which a large proportion has gone to commandos at Holsworthy Army Camp, as well as other activities. But we now have the Governor-General, David Hurley, as our patron. We have as ambassadors Dr. Brendan Nelson. We also have a number of other very distinguished people. Sir Peter Cosgrove is one, and we have a number of junior ambassadors as well. We are so proud of the way things have gone here with this at the moment that we honestly believe that it's something that the general public has accepted and they understand what we're trying to actually do. And bearing in mind that Cam's cause is made up of 4 vice presidents, all of which have young families, all of which have a full-time job, all of which never take 1 red cent. So every dollar that Cam's cause raises, that whole dollar goes towards the end result of a recruitment for need in veteran affairs, for recruitment in the need of helping the families of the fallen.
If people would like to contribute to Cam's cause, how can they help, Doug?
It's very simple. If you, and most people are these days, will have the internet and they can get on Google. If they were just to go to camscause.org, so that's camscause.org, and that will take you through to the charity. There is a little box on the top right-hand side which will allow you to go through the whole lot of it. And it's very self-explanatory in there. There's a place where you can make a donation, and we would be extremely grateful if you were to make a donation. And Cam's Cause Charity receives donations, and if I can tell a very quick little story of the different degrees of money that come into Cam's Cause, we were approached by a mother of 2 twins, and they were 7 years of age. And they wanted to donate to Cam's cause after sort of like knowing Cameron's story. And they actually opened up their piggy bank, and their piggy bank had $7.65 in it. And they wanted to donate all that to Cam's cause. When I was first told of it, I said, we can't possibly accept that. Not because the money was very low, but because they were just little children and this was their life savings. And then it was pointed out to me in a nice fashion that we would be disrespectful of those particular little girls that if we didn't accept that. So it was decided what we would do was, we'll accept that $7.65, but we would give them over $100 worth of merchandise. And from that extreme, we go to the other where we can have a donation of up to $10,000 or more. So every one of those is never taken for granted, and it is greatly accepted. So if somebody wants to make a donation, we'd be very grateful for that.
Recently, Doug, you unveiled Cam's new headstone. Can you tell us and share with us what that new headstone means to you and the family?
That headstone is a project which has taken about 2 years. It was brought to our attention by a few people that possibly a Victoria Cross recipient may have a slightly upgraded headstone. We took this on board and we thought about it for a while. Then we decided, I think it can be upgraded. And so the process was started, and we now finished with a nice black marble with gold-plated writing on it with the Victoria Cross in the middle for gallantry. And it is something that when we first buried Cameron, the Victoria Cross hadn't been presented. So there was certainly room for to be able to upgrade that particular headstone, and we decided as a family we would do that. And we're very pleased with the final result, and having the Governor-General, David Hurley, only a few weeks ago now actually come up to the Gold Coast to actually do that official unveiling was very gratifying, and we're very thankful for that.
Just to finish up, Doug, what are your plans now for UNK going forward?
Oh, look, our plans are pretty simple. when we can get right back into the full swing of things, COVID has certainly put a stop on the travel, and but I'm starting now to move around again. I'm sort of like hoping that we can get back to the full swing and start to promote and start to raise more awareness of what CAM's cause does and some money for it, that I'll eventually be able to hand over the reins to one of the vice presidents, the position of president, and allow me to become an ambassador or a vice president or something like that. That's the way we see things, and because we're in our 70s now, we have a limited time as to what we can and what we can't do, but we will certainly keep going forward, and we will certainly support the family of the fallen and our current vets and those at 2 Commando Regiment as while ever we've got a breath in our body. We will continue to do that.
Doug, I'd like to thank you for your courage in sharing Cam's life with us. I really appreciate you making time for us, and if it's okay with you, I'd like to finish with a story about Cam that happened 2 weeks before he died. Students had written to soldiers as part of a Year 7 class project. Campbell Braid received a letter from Cam. I'd like to read it for our listeners, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, it certainly is, Adam. Please do so.
Cam wrote, "Sometimes my job is difficult, but I have good reasons to do it. Making the world a safer place for others is one reason. I think we are very lucky in Australia. We are safe and can live our lives as we wish. Being away from my family and friends is difficult, but I have been in the army for over 13 years and become accustomed to being away." Cam finished the letter with, "Always try your best in whatever you do and always be happy in life. Lest we forget, Corporal Cameron Baird, VC, MG, son, brother, and uncle." Thank you, Doug, for coming on True Blue History.
Thank you very much, Adam, and thank you very much for your listeners to taking this on board.
I rise to solemnly inform the House, in the presence of family and our military chiefs, that the 100th Victoria Cross has been awarded to an Australian. This award is to the late Corporal Cameron Baird, already an iconic figure in our army, who had earlier received the Medal of Gallantry. As the citation reads, his Victoria Cross is for most conspicuous acts of valour, extreme devotion to duty, and ultimate self-sacrifice at Gorchak village in Uruzgan Province, Afghanistan, as a commando team leader. Madam Speaker, Corporal Baird was born in Burnie, Tasmania. As a youngster, he captained the Victorian Primary School AFL team. He joined the Army aged 18 and was posted to what's now the 2nd Commando Regiment. He served in East Timor, Iraq and Afghanistan. He was on his 5th Special Forces tour when he was killed in the action for which he was awarded the Victoria Cross. On the 22nd of June last year, in the first phase of the engagement, Corporal Baird and his team came under heavy fire on 3 separate occasions from well-prepared enemy positions. In the initial encounter, 6 enemy combatants were killed and weapons caches were captured. In subsequent encounters, Corporal Baird charged enemy positions and neutralised them with grenade and rifle fire. By drawing fire on himself repeatedly, he enabled other members of his team to regain the initiative. In the second phase of the engagement, Corporal Baird then led an assault on an enemy-held compound. On 3 separate occasions, under heavy fire, he forced the door of a building. Twice he was forced to withdraw, to reload, and then to clear his rifle. For the 3rd time, he entered the building, again drawing fire away from his comrades, who were able to secure the objective. Tragically, he was killed in this final assault. Madam Speaker, words can hardly do justice to the chaos, confusion and courage that were evident that day. The comrade who was with him testifies, "I have witnessed many acts of leadership and courage under enemy fire during my operational service. Corporal Baird's initiative, fearless tenacity and dedication to duty in the face of the enemy were exemplary and an absolute inspiration to the entire team. I was witness to the ultimate sacrifice." Another comrade, also with him that day, testifies, "I have no doubt that by absolutely disregarding his own safety numerous times in order to assault a heavily armed and fortified enemy position, Corporal Baird's courage and resolve proved the tipping point. His repeated attempts to attack that room with 6 insurgents inside was the bravest event that I have ever seen in my experience on 2 tours as a commando. Well, Madam Speaker, others must now speak for him because he can no longer speak for himself. Corporal Baird was the 40th Australian soldier killed in Afghanistan, and please God, the last. We mourn them all. We grieve with their families. Today we grieve with Cameron Baird's parents, Doug and Kay, his brother Brendan, and his nephews Riley and Max. You have lost a son, a brother, an uncle. Our country has lost a citizen, a soldier, a hero. We are all the poorer for his passing, but the richer for his living. For all of us, this is a bittersweet day. Bitter because a fine man is gone and cannot be brought back. Sweet because he died for his mates, doing what he lived for. Madam Speaker, what makes some men warriors and others peacemakers is a mystery. A fragrant few can be both. It's good to have them, because warriors and peacemakers will be needed in Afghanistan and wherever else our armed forces might go in the years to come. Madam Speaker, I salute Corporal Cameron Baird, VC MG. We all salute him and his almost equally remarkable comrades. In this place, we don't face danger, so we can hardly claim him as our brother, but we do acclaim him as our hero. We can hardly imagine what the likes of Corporal Baird and his comrades go through, but we stand in awe of their extraordinary courage, the extraordinary courage of these amazing men who serve our country and keep us safe.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review for the podcast on whatever platform you get your podcasts. And if you feel like supporting us, you can now via our Patreon page. That's patreon.com/truebluehistory, or buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/truebluehistory, and check out our new website, truebluehistory.com, for more great content.